So a lot of times we don't love ourselves because of guilt and shame. And I want to talk just like the final part of what I want to talk about today too is that guilt and shame cycle. That I think every person who's in recovery has experienced where you're like, what's the use? You know, I didn't live up to a value. So why live up to any of them? You
Yeah.
know, how talk to me. Do you have anything to say about those kind of things that people are dealing with every day? Maybe they saw something and they wanted to stop because that's the thing too. You get people on the internet, they want to stop. They say, I don't want to do it anymore. And they go right back.
Yeah.
What do we say to people?
Well, there's a number of things. Addiction is not simple. There's trauma underneath it. There's the guilt and shame cycle that's often connected to the trauma, and there's the neurology of it.
Mm,
And so just healing the guilt and shame isn't enough. But you're right, guilt and shame is huge. And it's not just guilt and shame about what I'm doing now, it's guilt and shame about what I've done before.
mm,
Um, I'm always very grateful to Patrick Carnes. He's the founder of Afar. And I had the good fortune of being able to work with him for a while. Um, and one of the things that he has said frequently is recovery is about living in the middle of paradoxes. And the one paradox that always comes to mind for me, on the one side, which has to do with that guilt and shame, is as an addict in recovery, I will always be responsible for my past behaviors, my past actions, the impact that it had on me, the impact that my addiction and my behaviors had on other people. The responsibility for that will never go away, no matter what I do moving forward. And I feel that. And so there's a weight, there's a responsibility that if I haven't done my healing work is going to lead into guilt and shame and it's going to pull me back into spiral stuff because I'm never going to feel worthy of anything.
mm,
You know, when my partner says, "Hey, I love you," if that's all I'm holding on to, it's going to be, "Yeah, but I did that. I don't think you really mean it because I did that."
mm,
Or if I'm keeping it a secret, well, you wouldn't say that if you knew that I did that.
mm,
But the other side of that paradox is the hope side. It's I'm actively living my life in a different way. I am not the same person I was before. I am leaning into values. I'm leaning into principles. I'm leaning into recovery. I'm letting other people guide me and help me find a way through when my brain can't do it on its own. I am not the same person I was before, and don't judge me based on who I was before. And with that, it's so powerful because that's the healing and the change. But if that's all I lean into, that becomes that piece of whitewashing my past.
right, right,
And
right.
so and like you were saying with the religious addiction, it's like with that, I just pray it away and we never have to talk about it ever again,
Wow.
you
Yeah.
know? And so when we live our life in the middle of those paradoxes, when I can simultaneously hold accountability and responsibility for what I've done, and I can also hold on to I'm living my life in a different way. I'm a very different person than I was before. And I can hold them simultaneously, even though they're opposite.
Right.
And being in recovery isn't about one or the other is right. It's about they're both right. And I'm learning when to lean into accountability and responsibility and when to lean into I'm a different person and I'm living my life in a different way.
Mm,
And neither of those means I'm canceling out the other. And when
yes.
I can hold both of those, guilt and shame go back into their purpose, which is not to tear me down and make me feel less than.
Mm,
Guilt and shame are there to help guide me on containing my behavior to match my values and to sort of understand that I'm no different or better than anybody else. I'm living my life in a different way, and guilt and shame can help keep me on that path when I can put them in their correct context.
right. Whew, that's good. That's really, really good. You know, because you do have sides of thought that says, hey, all guilt and shame, you should never have it. You
No.
know,
And there are other sides that we lean into, and social media drives me nuts with this, which holds on to the idea that you will never be redeemed for what you've done in the past.
right. and you can't go either or. Yeah, I
Right.
love this. I love this. The paradox is real.